All right, so far we've talked quite a bit about what is in the standard American diet again. Lots of refined grain products, crunchy snack foods, lots of dairy products, high-fat dairy products, refined meats, a lot of added fats, sugar, and salt as the norm. We haven't talked too much about what is significantly lacking, and that's coming especially from those fruits and vegetables, whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds that don't tend to be very commonplace in the standard American diet. And that kind of leaves some holes in our diet in terms of nutrient density and some nutrients that we're really missing out on. And that brings us to quiz question 3. The standard American diet was assessed on an index score of 1 to 100, quantifying nutrient density. So 1 being really poor and 100 being excellent. What did the standard American diet score? Again, keep in mind, especially with the standard American diet, we're consuming very few whole plant-based foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds. Again, those foods tend to be where we get the bulk of our nutrients, trying to give you guys a hint on how poor the nutrient quality might be. And the answer to quiz question 3, so the standard American diet was assessed on a scale of 1 to 100, quantifying nutrient density. What did it score? It scored an 11. So basically a 1 out of 10 in terms of the nutrient density. So actually incredibly poor. As a point of reference, the Mediterranean diet, I'm sure you've probably heard something about this dietary regimen in the media, for instance, scored a 74 out of 100. So the Mediterranean diet, which I'm actually going to do a follow-up presentation focusing on the Mediterranean diet and some other similar diet protocols. This diet has long been studied and very consistently associated with reduced rates of heart disease and reduced rates of certain cancers and diabetes, and in general is a very health promoting dietary pattern. All right, so the next quiz question. Name 3 of the key nutrients that are commonly deficient or of low intake in the standard American diet. All right, so the answer to quiz question 4, I would accept any number of key nutrients here, and really the ones I have listed here are just kind of scratching the surface, but certainly fiber, we've talked about that one earlier in the discussion. Potassium and magnesium that we get from a whole host of fruits and vegetables. Vitamin A we're getting from green leafy vegetables and carrots. Vitamin C, of course, things like strawberries and citrus and some greens as well. Vitamin E, you're going to find that in a lot of different nuts and seeds and beans, for instance. And then vitamin D is another big one. So keep in mind when we're eating a lot of refined foods, which makes up about 70% of the standard American diet, in that refining process, unfortunately, it strips most of those nutrients out of place. So that's why we're just lacking those nutrients in the standard American diet. So the standard American diet is definitely lacking in a number of key nutrients, all of them, and many more actually that you see here. And each one of these important micronutrients and microminerals are involved in dozens, if not hundreds, of different biochemical reactions in the body that do everything from building proteins to telling genes how to express and making certain that our immune function is strong and adequate, maintaining our digestional health and function. So when we're not getting these nutrients, there are definitely some side effects and some symptoms that we commonly notice or may not notice. The standard American diet and nutrient deficiencies. So we mentioned a number of nutrients that the standard American diet is definitely low in. So we'll look at some key electrolytes here, potassium, magnesium, and calcium. So some very common symptoms and signs related to low intake of these key minerals, things like muscle weakness and cramping, being fatigued, lightheaded, feeling faint, for instance, having heart arrhythmias, constipation, high blood pressure, depression and anxiety, osteoporosis, dry skin, and psoriasis. When we look at a list like this, it's really easy, hindsight looking back, to go, well, goodness, yeah, I'm fatigued. I know my blood pressure typically runs high. I'm on these antidepressant medications. I'm frequently dealing with constipation. So when you start to put all these symptoms together, it's common. It could very well be more related to our diet than some other things we might attribute those issues to, like, well, I'm just getting a little older, or maybe I'm stressed out. So I think oftentimes we're too quick to discount diet as a potential concern with these issues. Okay, so we'll look at now some key water and fat soluble vitamins that the standard American diet is commonly low in. Vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, and vitamin D. So some signs and symptoms that you're at low intake: dry, damaged skin, psoriasis, acne, poor wound healing, easy bruising, painful or swollen joints, digestive issues, again, depression, anxiety, mood issues, poor immune function, frequent illnesses, fertility issues, or chronic inflammation in the body, especially if we're not getting enough of the vitamin C and the vitamin E, for instance, are some key anti-inflammatory vitamins that do help to kind of dampen that process. So again, if you're looking at these signs and symptoms, again, you might recognize, goodness, I've got frequent ongoing digestive issues. I know I'm down, and again, taking an antidepressant medication, I'm frequently running into coughs and colds and other illnesses. I've got dry skin and psoriasis issues. So again, seeing all these different signs and symptoms that align in so many people. But unfortunately, diet is often one of those things that is focused on last. It's always a whole host of other reasons why we might be dealing with these concerns rather than the quality of our diet. All right, so how standard American diet is your diet? So take the assessment and find out. In the email that went out letting you guys know about this YouTube presentation here, I also included in that email an attachment to a diet assessment. Again, just trying to get at the overall quality of your diet. And I'll throw myself under the bus here. I do eat a pretty healthy diet, but it's not perfect. So my score was a bit lower than I thought that it might be. So go ahead, take the assessment if you would, and hopefully provide a little bit of feedback about how things are looking for you. All right, the Harvard Healthy Eating Plate recommendations. I would look at this as kind of the anti-standard American diet. If you look at healthy eating protocols like the Mediterranean diet, like the Mayo Clinic heart health diet, like the DASH diet, for instance, it does focus heavily on consumption of whole plant-based foods, especially fruits and vegetables. 5+ servings a day is what's recommended. Upwards of 3 servings a day of whole grains. This could be whole wheat bread or oats or quinoa, for instance. 2 to 3 servings of healthy proteins and the right portions of healthy proteins. So more often chicken and fish, and a 3 to 4 ounce portion size is plenty adequate. When you're choosing beverages, more often than not, choose water, tea, or coffee, unsweetened. And when you're evaluating fats in your diet, More often than not, try to lean towards oils like olive oil or flaxseed oil or canola oil in your cooking rather than the hard fats like butter, for instance, or some of those processed fats like margarine. Certainly some better decisions that we can make within our diet. So making dietary changes isn't always an easy thing to do. I have, changed my diet little by little over time to a much healthier diet than what it used to be, 10, 15, 20 years ago. Oftentimes it just requires starting somewhere, taking an honest assessment of what you're eating and looking for those areas where I can make those small but meaningful improvements and gradually make those improvements over time. If I was to look at some of my priorities, some things are always encouraging more fruits and vegetable intake. Again, that's where we get the bulk of those nutrients in our diet. And sometimes it's easier to add healthy foods into the diet rather than adding healthy foods into the diet and taking away other not so healthy foods at the same time. So maybe that fruit and vegetable area is a great thing to tackle first. Another area, certainly beginning to limit some of those processed foods in our diet. And we all have those kind of junk foods that we gravitate towards. Maybe we eat too many fast foods, or maybe there's too many sweets in the mix. Maybe the problem area is more sugar sweetened beverages for some folks. But just recognizing what that problem area of the diet is, we all have it. I eat way too much pizza. I know that. Pasta is a concern. If I'm faltering on my diet, chances are too much pizza, too much pasta, maybe a few too many sweet treats at night. And without fault, those tend to be my issues. But look for those areas in your diet that you recognize are those problem areas and start to chip away at them little by little. Choosing healthier meats and oftentimes smaller portions. If we can at least start to reduce some of the red meats like beef and pork, and especially those refined meats, which tend to be especially problematic, bacon and sausage and things of that nature. And leaning more towards chicken and fish, and especially looking at the portion sizes. Meat can be a healthy part of the diet. We tend to eat way too much of it when we do put it on our plate. So we should be looking at a portion size that's more like 3 or 4 ounces versus the 8, 10, 12 ounce typical portions that we might be consuming. The important thing to recognize with diet and making changes is that any meaningful change is important and can be impactful. So just start somewhere is what I always try to impart on people. You don't have to do it all at once. If the most important thing right now is, hey, I need to eat more fruits and vegetables, work at that. Once you feel you're doing better and can take on something else, decide what that next important step might be for you. But the important thing, again, is starting somewhere and setting a few meaningful goals for yourself. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. If you do have any follow-up questions, please do shoot me an email, call. I'm always willing to help on the side with any health, wellness, diet, exercise related questions you might have. So thank you again, guys, and have a great day.